Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so happy that you could be here to join us with one of our wonderful speakers who's graciously joined us today, Kia Milan. She is a marketing and creative content professional and currently is a creative content specialist on the awards team at Netflix. She previously was a senior production manager at Stars. Kia holds a bachelor's in speech communications with an emphasis in broadcast production from Metropolitan State College and a master's in organizational leadership from Colorado State University. And Kia has also shared that she's also always had a passion for media and a passion for highlighting diverse stories. So thank you again, Kia. If you want to further introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So yes, I'm Kia Milan and I currently work at Netflix. I work under our award umbrella on marketing campaigns for award contending titles across film, series, and documentaries. So we just had this prior weekend was a pretty exciting weekend for us where we had 7 wins from those Oscar campaigns that we worked on. And I'm just thrilled to be here and talk with you guys and answer any questions you may have about my selected career path.
We'll get started with, what does kind of your day-to-day look like at Netflix? What do you do in your role? What does that look like?
Of course, with the COVID of it all, things are a little bit different for us. Typically, I am running from building to building or even on sets, capturing content from talent to use in campaigns. I do a lot of talent basing with the talent that you see on some of those titles that are on our Netflix platform. And then a lot of meetings. I spend quite a bit of my day in meetings with my cross-functional partners where we're coming up with strategy and determining what our top bets are going to be for award season.
A lot of meetings. I think that's one thing that we never expect, right? As we go to the professional world, all the meetings we have to go into to get our jobs done. How did you first get into this field? I know probably not a linear path like a lot of people. So how did you first, start getting interested in media and really thinking about where that could take you?
Well, believe it or not, it started at 6. My mom took me to PBS for a tour of their studio. And I wasn't as interested in what was going on with things in front of camera, but more intrigued by the people who were doing voiceovers and the people who were behind cameras and the people who at that point, they were logging tapes. That's to age me a bit. There were actual videotapes that they were logging. And so I found myself really intrigued by what that was, what that looked like. And early on, I knew whether it be, production or journalism, that was my path, was going to be my path, and pretty much stayed my path until this very moment.
So that's really great. You knew from such a young age, like, this is really what I like to do. That's really cool. So along that way, through, our students right now who are middle school and high school and maybe thinking along those same lines, what did you do throughout those years to kind of prepare yourself or, seek opportunities or, kind of see how you could get to where you are right now?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Colorado, and during COVID, we're quarantining. This is our bubble. We're still in Colorado. So Colorado was my home base, and I became a bit of a pest. There was a local newspaper. It's called the Urban Spectrum newspaper. And I would send them, I'm going to age myself again. I would send them floppy disks with stories I had written because I had an interest in journalism and writing and production. And so I would send the publisher at the time floppy disks monthly with new ideas I had thought of and wanted to submit. And at 13, she reached out and said, okay, we will publish one of your stories in our local newspaper. And from that, she started a youth foundation, and I became the editor-in-chief of the newspaper, which was targeted to youth in the Denver area. And then they started a partnership with Channel 12 here in Colorado, where we were able to go in and learn about camera angles and what it took to wrap cord and just you name it about production. And we had speakers that would come in, whether they be from the Denver Post, the local newspaper, or from Channel 9 News, the local news station. And I continued my pestering and just asking people questions and just being curious and not saying, I will say this, reaching out to professionals and saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Never do that. Have your questions already prepared. So you come to them and say like, hey, I'm curious, when you did, this on the news last week, what did that take? And who else is with you when you're developing these stories for on air? What does that look like? What's an assignment desk? Some of those things really continue to propel me in this direction, because that curiosity then became, I think this is what I'm intended to do. And so in high school, I won a Colorado Association of Black Journalists award for one of my stories that was published, and just kind of became intrigued by how those diverse stories could be told, and from a different viewpoint, right? Because then I'm same age as you guys, a teenager telling these stories, and those stories are, getting awards, and that's fantastic. But then my peers are like, what are you doing? And how are you doing this? And now they're interested in this field, and what may be their intended path for their life. And so then out of high school, I decided, what my major would be. And at the time it was broadcast journalism. And that over time changed, a couple of times, just because I did an internship at a local news station. And during my time at the station, I found that anchors that I was shadowing were getting laid off. So I thought, wait a minute, I want to go in a field where I'm going to have a job.
Be secure.
Yeah, I want security. So I asked if I could switch to the promo department. And so I interned for a bit with the promo department, and found my love for production didn't necessarily mean that I had to be a journalist in production. There were other opportunities in marketing, and that's what led me here.
It's also for young age, you hit the ground running. You you had a question and you ran with it. And it sounds like you were that student, that person who helped that program grow. Like they started it because of you saying like, hey, we need this.
Yeah. Now I serve on the board of that program.
Wow, that's very cool. Oh, that's really awesome. And for our students too, I think they think questions, right? They're stupid questions, they're too small, or no one's going to answer them. But we always tell them like, ask all the questions, right? People more often than not will answer them, right? If you ask them about what they do, people like to talk about themselves, so they'll share that with you. So whether it's an email or LinkedIn now, right? Everything's very virtual. Ask those questions. Don't be afraid to reach out. And if they don't answer, then okay, next, right? There's more people you can reach out to.
Exactly.
And so Kia, like this passion, this drive that you've had from such a young age, who were maybe some of the supporters that helped you with that too? Were your cheerleaders along the way, or your support system?
Yeah, so I am raised by a single mother who is just the biggest cheerleader to this day. And so from a young age, for me and my brother is a musician, and you didn't have an option of just not doing anything, right? So we were in, you name it, for extracurricular activities. And if we were in something that we didn't like, we had to finish. I am not a basketball player in any sense. And she signed me up for basketball, and I was like, this is just not for me. I know I said I wanted to, but she's like, no, you will finish the 8 weeks. So mom is my biggest cheerleader. She's the person who just kind of continued to push me. And then also, while I'm, inquisitive about these things, would bring home books from the library, videos from the library, articles she had found, to just really pour into us in the things that we were interested in. So for sure, my mom, Rosalind B. Harris, is the publisher of that Urban Spectrum newspaper that I talk about. And she has been a tremendous mentor to me. And then over time in my career, I have worked with just phenomenal people. Even if I don't work one-on-one with them, if I see them, in a meeting, or I see an article about them, I'm always willing to reach out and ask my specific questions about what they have going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important to have those people, right, that you can just reach out to, and that they're going to help you along the way. And of course, your mom, your biggest cheerleader, right? Awesome. And let's see, I guess kind of going along that same path of finding your support system. Once you got to college, what were the type of things that you were involved in again to find that support and really help you, stay motivated and stay on track?
Yeah. So when I got to college, I actually I have a group of friends from college that are still my friends. Um, they've started a company, their Rule of Three Entertainment, and they do video production. They did my wedding video for me. Like, so that's really tight knit circle of it's I'm the only girl, me and these guys. They just till this day, if I post a featurette that I've produced, they are just cheering me along. And they'll also tell me when perhaps I've done something that they're not so into. Like, did you think about looking at it this way? And so I think it's important as you're developing mentors and developing friendships and that you have a good group of people who are willing to cheer for you when you've done something fantastic, but also call you on stuff when it's not that great. And that's important, not just in your career, in your personal lives. You want people who are going to be supportive and encouraging, but also in the best way, want to see you succeed. So if it's something that's not right, that they're saying like, I don't think you should have done that. I don't really like that. And you can take that constructive criticism and apply it to your life.
Yeah, super important, right? That's how we all grow. We're not perfect 100% of the time. That's totally fine. I want to make sure that we learn from any of the challenges that we have or the mistakes.
Yeah.
Has there been maybe a specific time, a hurdle, a challenge that you really felt that, it was one of those things that maybe could have been a roadblock, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. So I worked for Stars for many years in their marketing department, and it was a fantastic job. It was here in Colorado, which is like unheard of. We don't have a lot of production or entertainment industry jobs here in Denver. And so landing a job there was just my dream. And then Lionsgate acquired Stars, and with those types of things in business, sometimes that changes the direction of companies. And so my team was laid off, and I was devastated. The day before, my VP said, they're likely going to ask us to move to Santa Monica, so let's prepare for that. I went home, had a conversation with my husband about what that looked like for us. And then the next day to get the word that I was being laid off was just the end of the world for me, it felt like. And so I really had to, pick myself up and determine like, okay, well, what's next for me? And I went and got a job at an agency, which was fine, getting some new experience. And then 3 months after, Stars called me and said, actually, we need you back. So devastating experience, but it was, I think, necessary because it really put me into a new position at Stars where I began working on award content, which ultimately landed me at Netflix.
Yeah, so even things that may seem like you said, like a setback, it ended up working out for a reason. And that's important for students to know too. Like, it could seem like the end of the world, but you'll get through it and just keep going, right? Like, there's going to be more opportunities. Yeah, it's really, yeah. So thank you for sharing that, Kia. It's really important for students to hear. And I guess on the flip side, what is maybe something that you've been super proud of yourself at work or in your journey? I'm sure there's a lot. You've done so many amazing things. What's something that really stands out to you? You're like, wow, this is a moment that I really look back on next year.
Yeah, so starting at Netflix, I had no intention of leaving Colorado. I had friends who had left, home and come back, or have left home and stayed gone. And for me, it just felt like Colorado was home. And now that and it still is, right? I can always come home, even in the midst of a pandemic, I can come home. But the opportunity to go to a different state and flourish in new ways, I think was really important for my journey. Because home is wonderful, but there's always some new exciting journey out there. And so I think that's what Netflix served for me. They reached out to me. I didn't apply for my position, which really felt like, oh, it's Netflix and they're contacting me. So making that jump and working with this team of professionals that I get to work with day in and day out, and each award season, we're garnering more and more nominations for these fantastic shows, and I'm a part of that, is really fulfilling.
Thank you, Kia. Yeah, that's really amazing. They reached out to you and you're like, oh, wow. Thank you for that. Let's see here. Let me remind you students, any questions, please feel free to use the chat. We are going to be coming up on the Q&A section in the next couple minutes. So again, any question, please feel free to put it in. And remember, no question is too small. Oh, we do have some working. And so someone asked, what are some of like the benefits of working at Netflix? What are the things that you like about working there?
Yeah, I mean, Netflix is fantastic. We have this culture memo, which is pages of how our culture is within the company, and it's very different than other companies in that we have a few kind of pillars. One of which that I love is freedom and responsibility, where you have the freedom to make decisions. There's not like a ladder that you have to go up to, check off and get approval on things. If you have a brilliant idea, you lean into it and you're able to create it, unless it's just absurd. But for the most part, if you have an idea, you have that freedom to kind of grow and bring that to fruition. We also have context over control, where we're always in communication with each other. But if I have an idea my supervisor doesn't necessarily love, I can still move forward with that idea because there's context, but no control. Another benefit that people love hearing about is we have unlimited vacation. So we work so much and so hard, and we're it's the best and brightest there, that they have set it up for us where if you need vacation, you take vacation. We don't have a set amount of time off.
And so I guess kind of going off of that, what would that look like in your role, right? Like unlimited vacation, or you have this big project, and what would that look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm just coming off of Oscar season where we have worked tirelessly on those campaigns. And so next week I will be taking a week and a half off from work. And then in the middle of May, it's my son's birthday, and I'll be taking 2 days off then. My grandmother passed away year before last, and I took 3 weeks, and no questions asked there, because we're putting in the work day in and day out. So when time is needed, they see the value within their employees, and we're given the time we need.
And that's super important for our students too, as they think about where they want to end up eventually, right? Like what type of work culture is there? What are the things that are important to you? Does this company have similar values? So it's very important to think about too. And in times like this, right, where there's a lot of turmoil going on, like how will that response be? So it's really good to hear that you found someplace that you feel supported and you enjoy going to work.
Sure.
So we have a couple other questions in the chat. And then someone asked, can you just give another brief explanation of what your job is and like what you do? For some people who missed it in the beginning.
For sure, because it's very unique. I'd say awards is a very niche area in the entertainment business. So I work as a creative content producer, if you will. We're producing featurettes, which are kind of short form videos that give you a peek into the world of the film series or documentary that we're pushing for awards. The creative that I create is targeted towards award voters. So Academy voters, HFPA for Golden Globes. We're positioning these videos to give them a deeper look into the talent, or sometimes above the line, which are our actors, and below the line, they're listed differently on credits. So below the line would be like your costume director, your head of hair, the hair department, which our head of hair just made history winning for Ma Rainey on Sunday. So we're developing these videos that show their work, and oftentimes there's interviews with them that give voters just a really targeted look into their world and why they're worthy of being considered for these awards. So it's a brief way of explaining what we do.
There's a lot that goes into it, right? It's not just, oh, you do an interview, you shoot it, you're done. There's so many layers to it, and making sure that this is how things should be portrayed and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Something important too for students to know that there's so many layers to media and production, and it's not just one thing or what we see right in the media.
Exactly. Yeah, no, because this falls under, it's awards, and this falls under marketing. So that goes back to during my time at the internship going like, oh, what else is there available for production where there may be maybe a little bit more job stability. Marketing is a great area for stability.
And so many transferable skills, right? Like you said, if you find maybe this portion of production marketing isn't for me, there's another thing that you can go into and use those skills.
Exactly.
And I guess maybe maybe not one last question, but one of the last ones as we get ready to wrap up. What would you say for our students right now is maybe one of the biggest skills you need as you go into job searching or career exploration, and that's going to be transferable?
Yeah, I'd say relationship building. You want to be able to go in and foster relationships with other people, and know that, when I'm working with somebody on our legal department, in our legal department, they understand that's not my expertise, but I'm curious and I want to learn. I want to make sure that I'm following, the guidelines that they have set in place. Or if I'm working with our photography partners, that again, not my expertise, but I respect that it is theirs, and I want to partner with them in the best way to make sure we achieve a common goal. So for me, yeah, hands down, the ability to foster relationships with any and everyone, because it's just fantastic to learn and grow and meet new people, but also because it really does help you achieve what your goal is.
Mhm. Yeah, networking, that communication, you want to make sure that you're always, building good relationships with people.
Hmm.
Have you come across, people you've worked with in the past, or maybe had come across with, and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know they worked here, didn't even think we would cross paths again?
Absolutely. So I came from Stars here in Denver, and I worked with a young lady who worked at Stars in our Santa Monica office, and we always worked together over email and over phone. I had never met her in person. And my first day at Netflix, she was my office mate. She sat right next to me. So it's a big industry, but yet everything is so small and close knit, and everyone knows everyone. So that goes back to building those relationships. You want to make sure that you're not burning bridges, that people can always say like, yeah, no, she's great, or he's fantastic, he has great work ethic. And that's no matter what role. No role is too small, no role is too big. Everyone should be treated with the same respect, and that same desire to want to connect.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it's a big industry, but small, like world, right? You never know who you're going to, run into. And especially now in the digital world, we're connected to so many more people across so many different fields and industries. So it's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Look for any more questions in the chat. Again, students, we have a couple more minutes. So any other questions, please feel free to put them in. Okay, Kia, one more question for you. Let's see. What would you say for our high school students right now, if I know that they feel a lot of pressure right now, they have to feel like they have to figure it all out. What would you say if they're feeling that pressure right now and feeling like, wow, these people are doing this and I'm doing this, and they start that comparison? Some advice for them.
Yeah, don't do
Just
that.
don't do it.
Yeah, that's a road that you don't want to go on. Everyone's path is different. Comparison is never going to serve you. I took an additional year when my friends were finishing college. I wanted an additional year. I wanted to intern and I wanted to do some other things. I also worked while I was in college full time. So it took me a little longer, and that's okay. I wholeheartedly say you have to go at your own pace, and it's easy to see like what your friends are doing on Instagram, or oh, this person got into this college. Do not let that stop you. While I did attend Metro, before I went to Metro, my first year of college was at a community college. uh, it was less expensive to get my general ed courses out of the way, and I don't feel any shame about that in the least bit, because I followed the path that was best for me. So you guys, I will say, have just gone through a tremendous year. So you should be patting yourselves on the back for that alone. And you're getting ready to go on this new journey, and make it your own journey. Don't focus on what other people are doing. Focus on what's going to serve you best, what those besting your heart. And yeah, no, don't do that. Not do that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kim. It's really important. Like you said, it can be easy to, see what everybody else is doing and compare. But yeah, just remember you have your own strengths, you have your own path, you have your own pace. So whatever is meant to work out for you will work out for you in your time. You put in the hard work. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's all the questions that we have for right now. So thank you so much, Kia. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure the students do as well. Thank you, students, for attending. We really appreciate you coming and listening to our speakers. And yeah, and please let us know, reach out to your counselors if you have more questions you want to follow up with. Yeah, thank you again so much, Kia. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. You guys have a great rest of your school year, and enjoy your summer and do wonderful things.